What's behind the crucial swing state vote?
Most Americans have made up their minds. We'll tell you who the persuadables are.
And Vice President Joe Biden brings up the same-sex marriage issue, new data on where the American public stands on that issue. I'm Frank Newport, Gallup Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters. Well, Susan, pretty even race. We just finished our next swing states poll, 6 that we've done, I believe now. These are 12 crucial swing states where we interview voters and put them all together. The bottom line is it's a very close race. That's what our national polling is showing at the same time. But there's some fascinating data inside the overall marginals about what's going on in these swing states. One of them is certainty to vote, right? About 31% of the people we interviewed said they've not made up their mind for sure. Is that accurate?
That's right. About 7% are undecided, and the rest are aligned with one candidate or the other, but say it's possible they'll change their mind. So these are the voters, these swing voters in the swing states that will be the target of the next 6 months. And we looked at who they are. They are Republican or Republican leaning. They call themselves moderates. They give Barack Obama only a 40% job approval rating. That's pretty low. And they think that Barack Obama is more liberal than they are. 60% of them say Barack Obama is more liberal than they are.
Now, these are the swing voters we're talking about.
These are the persuadable
swing voters in the swing states.
Exactly. So these are voters that sound like they ought to be Romney voters, they ought to be Republican voters, but they're not yet.
So the question is, will they come in line and end up voting for Romney, or is there a possibility they'll move? And of course, that's what the campaigns are really focused on for the most part.
Or stay home, because I think the voters, we find the voters who feel passionately about a candidate are somewhat more likely to actually bother to go to the polls.
And speaking about passion, we asked these swing state voters, and again, they're within a couple of points saying they're going to vote for Obama, slightly over Romney, but basically statistically tied. We asked how enthusiastic you are about voting, and we had a change there, did we not? Good news for the Obama campaign.
Well, the Obama people, this is the part of the poll that they are talking about, because we found a Republican edge in enthusiasm in the previous 5 swing states.
Which is not atypical. Republicans can be more likely to turn out, as an example.
And especially they're in opposition to the guy who's in charge, so that gives them a little energy. Well, they've lost that, at least for the moment. Now, Democrats are more likely to be enthusiastic about voting, and the number of Republicans who say they're very or extremely enthusiastic about voting has, for the first time, dipped below 50%.
Now, the question there is this just the residue, as it were, of this bitter Republican contest for the nomination, and will that smooth out and they become more enthusiastic or not? We don't know, but that's what we'll have to continue to track.
But it underscores the task that Romney has in trying to please both the very conservative people in the party, which he's made some efforts to do. Spoke to the NRA, is about to go speak at Liberty University, while also keeping up enthusiasm among liberal and moderate Republicans.
Speaking of which, we asked people in swing states, voters, now when you think about Obama, is he more liberal than you or more conservative? New question. When you think about Mitt Romney, is he more liberal or more conservative? Now, the Obama data weren't surprising, right? Wasn't it a majority who said he's more liberal than I am? So his position's pretty clear up there, but it was a mixed bag, a mixed message, as it were, for Mitt Romney on that question.
Because we had a portion who thought he was more liberal, a portion who thought he was more conservative, and about 30% who thought he was like them. Now, is that good news for Romney or bad news?
Well, that's the interesting question, because you're talking about that's his, his issue. He's got to please constituencies. I guess some could argue it's good news because he's not typecast. And in a general election, as you say, he has to get his conservative base to turn out. They're not going to vote for Obama, but he doesn't want them to sit home. But those independents who are kind of in the middle, who may not be all that positive about a rabidly conservative person, maybe he has more of an appeal to him with this mixed image.
Yeah, and let me touch to 2 very quickly things I thought were interesting. 1 out of 4 Romney voters say Obama is more likable. And 4 out of 10 Obama voters say Romney would do a good job handling the economy. In that way, not quite as polarized a nation as we sometimes think.
Yeah, maybe so. But overall, Obama much more likable than Romney. Forced choice, of course. What was it, 20-something points?
27 points.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
But the one place where Romney did better in this poll among swing state voters was could manage the government effectively, a slight edge, and also on the economy. He could do the better job in the economy. So that's Romney's strength. As I've said, he's like a cold technocrat, right? But he claims he can manage the economy, manage the government and fix the economy. So that's kind of the difference. Obama can feel your pain. Romney's out there saying, I can fix it, or at least I'll let the system be set up so that you can fix it yourself.
Yeah, great point.
Now, Joe Biden, was that on purpose?
You know, Biden was on Meet the Press this Sunday, and he said that he was comfortable with same-sex marriage. That's not exactly the position the president's taken. He says his position is evolving. And you know, the question with Vice President Biden is often, did he mean to say it, or was it a gaffe? Was it inadvertent?
Yeah. Cynics claim that maybe this was planned.
And you know, one reason to think the cynics might be right is that 12 hours later we had the Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, come out and say he was comfortable with same-sex marriage too.
But so Obama will not come out publicly and say, I support same-sex marriage.
Well, he may have a fight about it. You know, the platform at the convention, it's possible it's an issue he's going to have to address, but so far he has refused to say that.
Interesting.
Why do you think? Why do you think?
Well, of course, he's got white independents who he's trying to get their favor, and they may be less likely to support, they are less likely to support the same-sex marriage than some of his core constituents. However, interestingly, our data have shown African Americans, who are very strong supporters, are actually more conservative on same-sex marriage than the average American, and clearly more so than the average Democrat. So there's a lot of cross currents going on here on this controversial issue.
And you know, that gives Obama a real cushion, because African American voters will not desert him because of a position he takes on same-sex marriage. I know you have new data out just this week.
That's right. It's 50% now in our new survey say they think that same-sex marriage should be recognized as legal, 48% not. Now, we have had it below that for years, way below that. It had come up to about 46% a few years ago, and then last year it burst through that 50% barrier and was 53%, slid down a little this year in our May values poll, which is just coming out, but still, that's the second highest we've said, 50% to 48. So if it were in a referendum, it would win same-sex marriage. So the public clearly is moving more in the direction of supporting same-sex marriage, but certainly not overwhelmingly so.
It's still pretty closely divided.
Absolutely. One last thing. Ron Paul, he's still around, right? He cropped up in the news this weekend at Maine and Nevada. He was there at the party. His people were there getting elected as delegates. He's not going to overturn Romney's certainty of being the nominee, is he?
But he's the only candidate still in the race beyond Romney, and he's likely to stay in the race, he says, at least until Romney has has clinched mathematically the nomination, and he's going to be a force to deal with in the convention. And you know, the Republicans ought to figure out a way to tap the appeal that Ron Paul has with younger voters.
Absolutely. I just looked at the data again. He's 78, oldest candidate who's running for the Republican nomination, yet young Republicans, mostly white, really like Ron Paul. And that's a constituency that Romney needs to try to do better in, white, young voters. So that's another reason he needs to stay close to the Paul campaign, right, rather than dismissing him or doing something more negative. We'll see how that plays out.
We will.
I'm Frank Newport, Gallup editor-in-chief.
I'm Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today.
And this is Election Matters.